I'd like to start with is a simple quote, and this will help get an understanding of where we're going. The techniques are not an end in themselves, but we are going to talk about techniques because there are techniques, but that's not really the goal. They are only vehicles for traveling the tantric path, the path toward unity. And that's really what love is. It's unity. It's that connection that we have, not only with others, but essentially with ourselves. And then with all the world around us, not just someone we're intimate with, but every relationship in our lives. And it's a journey of spirit that Tantra offers. An intimate spiritual love is its fuel. Now, this teaching originally comes from a spiritual approach. And in the advertisement for this workshop, it was pretty clear that this was a spiritual approach to intimacy. So I'm assuming that you're all open to this. And if for some reason spirituality isn't your game, just think of it as nature or universe or scientific energy. You don't have to think of this as a spiritual approach. This was the original intention of this teaching. But there's something for everyone here because we're all human, we all have energy, we're all dealing with love and suffering. So it doesn't matter if you think that God is there or here or wherever, but I am going to talk about those things. And if it's not really interesting to you, you can listen anyway. So spiritual love is its fuel, its energy. That is a primary concept here. Everything in this universe is energy. Science has proven this. This isn't some myth that the yogis talked about after staring at their navel for a year. It's really true. Everything exists. This is made of cells. Cells are made of a plus and a minus charge. But not only this material thing that we look at, our emotions, our minds, our thoughts, all of these are different forms of energy, different vibrations. And everything that exists has a vibration. So this is one of the things that we learn is how do we work with the energy, perceive it, amplify it, control it, and then actually project it and receive it from others. So this is Tantra using love's energy to spark the light within us so that we may come to know ourselves and one another better. And that's really what one of our major journeys in life is, to come to self-realization, self-understanding. Who are we? Why am I here? What is this all about? Where am I going? And what's the purpose of my life? And if we don't know the answers to these questions, then our life lacks meaning. So this is a science that helps us bring meaning into our lives. It's not just about energy and how do I play with the plus and minus and the masculine and feminine. It's how do I understand the big picture and my role within that universal picture. And this light of love is a healing tool for lovers. So there's a lot of tools that we're going to talk about today, but of course the ultimate tool is love. I am going to talk about sexuality and literally get deep into the nitty-gritty about the body and different aspects of positions and all of the different things about orgasms. But that's under the umbrella of the ultimate understanding of why we're doing all of this, and that's to find that love. First for ourselves, and then once we find that love, then we can actually work or play and dance and love somebody or something else. So those who walk in its reflection can achieve a radiant partnership, unique and everlasting. May these tools offer here light your way. Partnership, that's one of the fundamental concepts that we're dealing with here. You know, we're not, most of us, if you're here now, you're probably not going to go live in a cave and do meditation for the next 20 years. So how does partnership become a teacher? How does it become a tool for our awakening process? And it's actually one of the most powerful tools in this modern day in relationship, because what is that relationship? It's reflecting back to you every moment that you're with that person, something about yourself. So it's a great teacher to have this opportunity to be in relationship. And some people come to these talks and say, well, I'm single. Great. That means it's time for you to have a relationship with yourself. Develop the human being that you would love to fall in love with, and then very quickly others will start to be attracted to you. So this time that we spend alone with ourselves, not in intimate relationship with other, is the time to develop ourselves to the highest potential that we have, to step into our full power. So it's much more than just relationship with other. It's also a relationship with ourselves. And this is a very crucial part because this is where it all starts, right here with ourselves. Because anything that you actually see outside of you is a projection of your own mind anyway. So until you develop a harmonious, balanced relationship with yourself, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to have balanced and harmonious relationship with others. And guess what? That's not easy, because developing a loving relationship with yourself based on our past experiences, and we've all been human beings as far as I can see, and we know that in that human form, we've had suffering, we've had trauma, we've had heartbreak, the people that we love have hurt us, and we've hurt them. And so we start to build up different walls around our heart and around our being that we think, and even subconsciously without thinking, is to protect ourselves. But in that protection, we're actually keeping things out as well. So we need to start looking. This path of love is a path of honesty and real self-reflection, because it's the things that we hide from ourselves, or sometimes for me, I can lie to myself pretty easy just to convince myself of something that I want or don't want. But this looking at ourselves really clearly and honestly is the path to freedom. And when I talk about freedom, what do I mean? Essentially, it's the same thing that Buddha said. Not that I'm talking like Buddha, but you know what I mean. He is saying that there is suffering, but there's also a way out of suffering. And that's what we would all like to do, is to be freedom, to have the freedom from suffering, to be liberated. And when we talk about liberation, I come from a yogic background, but I've also studied Buddhism and Taoism and the ancient Hawaiian teachings, the Egyptian teachings, the Native American teachings. I've spent some time in the last 20 years really focusing on what could get us out of suffering. And for me, because I was able to spend so much time in yoga, this is what I want to share with you. It's one path out of many. It's not the only path, and I know that. But this is what I have to share with you, my own experience, because I can say that through this path, over the last 20 years, coming from a place of deep, dark suffering to a place of joy and happiness and freedom that I never thought was ever possible. And I say that with a smile because it's so good to be on the other side. I mean, it wasn't easy, but we're all young, healthy beings, which means we have a long time ahead of us, hopefully, to come to the light, to come into a life that is the life of our dreams, and to manifest everything that you want to bring into your life to have the highest possible experience. Because you know that you are the creator of your reality. There's nobody else who's responsible. It's your thoughts and your beliefs about you that are creating the world around you. So we start looking, what are my thoughts? What are my beliefs? Yoga is understanding the mind. The body is just a vehicle. You know, we can do all the stretching, and we often in the modern yoga get attached to asana practice, the physical postures, which are excellent and very necessary. But if we stop there, we only scratch the surface of what yoga can provide for us. We only get into the physical level. We are so much more than that. We are emotions, we are mind, we are spirit, and we are energy. So let's use the yoga science, which originally just used asana as a small foundational practice, not the end, not the goal. And the goal is to get into here so you can understand what this either great tool or awful obstacle can be. This can be your best friend or it can be your worst enemy, depending on your relationship with it and your understanding of it. And once we get this understanding, and we can understand how it works and what's obstacles it's actually creating for ourselves, with that understanding, we can then go beyond the mind and into the heart. Because it's very hard to get into the heart if the mind's in the way all the time. And you know what they call the mind in yoga? Probably some of you know this, the monkey mind. It's just constantly moving. I've heard a teacher say it's worse than that. It's a drunk monkey stung by a scorpion. It just does not stop. So we don't have to be an enemy of the mind. We just need to see that it has its own rhythm, it has its own pattern, it has its own way of movement. And then we step back and we become the observer. Because ultimately we are more than the mind. If you can see the thoughts, if you can sit in with your eyes closed, and who here has tried meditation before today? Pretty much everybody's probably sat and tried meditation. And was it easy to stop the mind? It's one of the greatest challenges that human beings have ever had. So it's not so much about stopping the mind. That may happen. It's more about observing the mind. And when you observe the mind, you create a space between who you really are and the thoughts that are constantly flowing. And then you can step into the peaceful observer. You don't have to be affected by the mind's tumultuous activity that's constantly raging. You can learn to observe it and laugh at its games. And say, that's a good one. I know you're just messing with me. And literally have a different perspective about what the mind is. And that's what this yoga science does for us. So this is a little bit of what we're going to talk about, but more it's okay. Then with the understanding that the mind is part of the obstacle, if not the major obstacle, also then how do we get into the heart space? How do we free ourselves from that prison sometimes that we put ourselves into? And by no fault of our own, okay? By no fault of our own have we built this wall. This is what happens when we're born in a human body. Remember, there is suffering, but there is a way out. And let's talk about the way out, because it's promising and it's exciting and it's there and it's really possible. And Tantra, which is really what I've studied, is saying that you can get out in this lifetime. You don't have to wait 100,000 lifetimes to experience bliss and happiness and joy and your full power. You can have it now if you just apply some of this art or science, whatever side of the brain you prefer to be in. It's both. But whatever you apply, or what you need to do, is understand that it's a daily practice. If you want to be a great musician or an artist or a business person or whatever it is that you want to be great at, don't you put some time into your craft every day? Well, wouldn't it be great to be a happy human being? Isn't it worth some time every single day to make yourself feel more peace, more love, more connected to the world around you? And yet we forget. We go into business, we go into school, we go into family, and those things become the priority. And we wonder why we're not as happy as we could be, because we're not taking care of this ourselves, our heart and our mind. If you can take care of that for a little bit each day, it just gets incrementally better, day after day, year after year. It's not a quick fix, okay? I'm not going to tell you that after the workshop you're going to walk out of here and be like, I'm so enlightened. But what you are going to have are tools that enable you to work on freeing yourself, and this takes your devotion to yourself. So there's so much to say, and I'll try not to say too much because I can talk and talk and talk. It's part of being a New Yorker. I was born in New York. And sometimes I get going really fast because I'm so excited. But the point is that what we have to do here today and tomorrow is to look into ourselves and to see how we can connect with ourselves and with others through love. And love simply means, to me, of course you can have your own definition, but from my experience, unconditional love is not love of attachment and ego and what do I get out of this relationship. It's how do I serve the other? How do I make the other's life better? How do I make this person feel better when they left me than when they arrived? What can I do to uplift this person? It doesn't have to be my physical lover. It can be my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my friends, my students. Whoever comes into my field is there for a reason. They're there to teach me about me. And so each person that comes in, what is the greatest thing that we can do? Serve our teacher and honor that lesson that they're here to give us. And sometimes we hate that lesson. And sometimes that person's doing things that hurt us, or we feel that we're being literally damaged by the relationship. But guess what? That's another lesson. That's another teaching. And if they're there in your life, they're there for a reason. None of this is happening by accident. It's all happening because of our consciousness and the lessons that we are calling in. So it's important to understand that we are actually at the fundamental level responsible for every single person and experience in our lives. We've called them in. Even the ones that hurt us dramatically. Somehow we need that. But we don't see it. We don't see why we need it because we don't have the bigger perspective. We look through a microscopic lens at the very small things in this universe that we focus on. But if you could pull back and see things from a macroscopic perception, in the long run, look back in your life. Haven't you seen that some of the greatest tragedies were also some of the greatest blessings and teachings and growth that you ever had was through the suffering and through the people that were difficult to deal with? So looking at this perspective and seeing it from a gift, an actual opportunity for you to awaken to unconditional love, which means accepting everybody as they are, because everybody's at their own stage in their evolution. Everybody is having their own difficult journey. So we don't know what they've gone through, and we don't know why they're acting the way they are. But if they're in our lives, it's definitely for our benefit. You know, there's a great teacher out there that I studied with, and I really encourage everybody to look into. Her name is Byron Katie, and she's a phenomenal teacher. And she said, I spent 9 days with her last summer, and she's like this tall, I don't know, she's really small, and giant blue eyes, and 70-something years old, has been teaching around the world for 35 years, didn't do any yoga, didn't do any practice, just woke up on the floor one day and realized what the cause of her suffering was. And she's going around sharing that. What is the cause of our suffering most of the time? It's our thoughts. It's not actually what's happening. It's our thoughts about what's happening that's creating the suffering in our lives. And what she said is life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Even the shit that you hate is actually happening for you. So once you start to embrace this understanding, it changes the things that feel so painful. The pain can still be there, but we can start to appreciate that this is a great teaching. Because the harder it is, the more we need to learn it. And that's a difficult lesson in life sometimes to swallow, especially people leave our lives, people get sick, people have, the people we love suffer too. And you think, how can this be fair? If there's a God up there, why is there all this suffering? Because that suffering is actually a benevolent form of education, believe it or not. Now, I can't force anything to you guys. All I can do is lay out the art, the science, and my own experience. And you can judge it through your own practice and see if it works for you. So I'm not here to convert you to this belief system by any means. I ask you only to be what the yogis say is you are the laboratory, the experiment, the scientist, and the results. Everything is within you. So if you want to learn anything, it's not about looking out into the world to try to change or learn out there. You find all the answers in here. And I know that you guys have heard this before. It's not, it's not genius or rocket science, anything that I'm saying. It's all very fundamental, but our mind and our ego constantly want to complicate things. We want more and more and more answers and techniques and teachings and workshops. And essentially, the only thing the great teacher can do is tell you to go inside yourself and look and stay until you find it. That's the teaching. It's not about how many techniques you have or how many relationships you have or who you know or what teachers you've studied with. It's what do you find inside of yourself? Because we are the microcosm of the macrocosm. Whatever exists here exists up there. And this is part of the metaphysical experiment, or metaphysical that we're talking about. That's day 2. The metaphysics is that everything in this energy, everything in this universe is energy and what else? You can talk, it's okay. Energy and? Energy is vibration, yes. Energy and consciousness. Everything that exists has a consciousness. And actually everything is a part of your consciousness. All that you experience, all that you perceive, from this to the stars, to the moons, to the universe, is all within your awareness, no? If it's within your awareness, it's within you. So whatever exists here exists everywhere. As above, so below. And these are not just teachings from yoga. All the ancient sciences and arts have talked about the fact that we are a replica, symbolically speaking, of the universe, and vice versa. So if you really want to find anything, as the Greeks said, know thyself and you shall know the universe. This is the route to freedom. It's not out there. That's the big thing that we need to understand. And yet we still go out there. If I get the right relationship, if I get the right car, the right house, have the right family, the right job, all of this, then I'll be happy. Has it worked? Have we found freedom through those external circumstances? Yes, we have some temporary pleasure. Life can get better. It can be more comfortable. But still, even in that comfort, we, in my own experience, have felt that sense of lacking. It's like, yeah, all my material needs are met, and I have a nice partner, and my family treats me well, but yet there's still some fundamental feeling that I'm missing something. And what is that we're missing? Our connection to something greater than ourselves. Because that's what's fueling everything. And what a lot of the masters say, it's God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, the source, the creator, it's love. And it's love that holds everything together. And so the metaphysics says that because of this law of attraction between the masculine and the feminine, you can call it yin and yang, you can call it Shiva and Shakti. In yoga and Tantra, Shiva is the masculine archetype, the consciousness, and Shakti is the feminine creator energy that's dancing around. But they're not actually separate. Our mind lives in duality. We see only light because we know what darkness is. We only know up because we know what down is. Everything that we experience is due to this duality that teaches us to find meaning. So our mind deciphers everything within this form of duality. But yet, the truth is, there is no duality. There's just a continuation of transformation from one to the other. You've seen the yin and yang symbol, yeah? It's just a swirling actually, if it was in motion, how one is feeding the other constantly. And actually one part, the yin is in the yang, and the yang is in the yin. That's what the circles are in the center of that symbol on each side. So there's a constant transformation. And that's another understanding that yoga is bringing us to what yoga literally means. Union, oneness. And once you see that everything is you, literally, everything is you. Everything that you perceive is your projection of your consciousness. You think it is presented outside of your head and outside of your mind. But you are everything, and you're perceiving it from one focal point. This being that I call Jason is the perceiver of the universe. But what I am and what you are is the universe looking at itself through different perspectives. It's really beautiful. And if you haven't listened to Alan Watts, that's another teacher that I would really recommend, because he's a modern teacher and he speaks to the modern mind, and he's not alive anymore, but we can access so many of his beautiful teachings, and he's got that mellifluous voice that sounds so nice to listen to, and you want to hear him as you're falling asleep. So there are great teachers that we can access, and that understanding of tapping into the teacher, the person who's walked the path and already found the freedom, if we can tap into those teachings a little bit each day, literally put your mind in resonance, read the words, listen to the words, study the science or the art, and you are uplifted because this is a guy or a woman who has walked the path and knows. And the great thing that Byron Katie kept telling us, I'm you. I'm just another part of you. You're already awake. I'm you, reminding you of who you already are. You're just forgetting. You're playing a game. In Hinduism, they call it Leela, the dance, the great theater of hide and seek. You come into this body being God and goddesses, yet you forget. So the idea is to learn who you are, and then you enjoy the game. Yeah, there's suffering happening, and there's great bliss happening, and you start to look at this like a theater of life, and you embrace the suffering as part of the beauty of the experience of being in the physical form. So the metaphysics are really deeper than I have time to go into, but in a simple statement, it's really about understanding that there is no separation between you and I. You are here for a reason. You called me into your life, and I called you into my life. It's all one foundational consciousness working together. Tantra means web. I don't know as second language speakers of English, it actually also can be translated as to weave or a loom, and that's the thing that puts the strings together to make fiber or thread. And they all are interconnected because they all touch each other. And that's what Tantra means, the interconnectivity or interconnectedness of everything that exists. When you go into a deep state of meditation, and the masters say this exact same thing, you see that there's not one grain of sand out of place in this whole universe. Everything is perfect in every moment. And our ego says, no, this sucks. I want it to be the way I want it to be. Why can't I have what I want when I want it? And I want it now, but I don't have it. And you freak out because it's not going the way that you think it should. But when you have the understanding that actually it's happening for you, not to you, I keep coming back to that point. That's a mantra that I say to myself every time I'm not getting what I want. It's happening for me, not to me, okay? It's happening for me, not to me. Ugh. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. So this is really important. Now, I could go on for days about this, but I want to get into some of the fundamental concepts. And the next one that I want to talk about is that polarity of energy, that everything in this universe, as I mentioned, is made of energy. There's a plus and a minus charge. We call it feminine and masculine. We can call it the plus and minus. Minus doesn't mean negative as in bad. It just means the opposite of positive, right? So there's always this attraction between the plus and the minus. And that's happening at the cellular level, it's happening at the human level, and it's happening at the universal cosmic level. Everything is this dance of Shiva and Shakti, of energy and consciousness. It's all one, but we perceive it as two. So this polarity of energy also becomes very important in our tantric practices. And when I talk about tantra, we could call it sacred sexuality. These labels are very limiting, right? It's just a word. It's not actually the thing. But I need to use words to try to communicate these concepts with you. So if you've heard bad things about tantra, if it's all about kinky sex and weird perverted magic and things like that, yeah, that exists too. But it's also originally about expanding our consciousness to perceive the oneness. It's about enlightening and awakening in this lifetime. So Tantra has darkness just as well as has light, just like everything in this world. So don't get hung up in the concepts or the labels, please. It's not about the name. It's about how do we at least try to point you in the right understanding. But as a great teacher says, don't stare at the finger, stare at the moon. That's what we're trying to understand. So don't get stuck on the words. But I'd say Tantra because that's a word that is easy for me to say. So the Tantric practice employs and understands and activates and works with this energy, sexual energy, because sexual energy is our fundamental creator of life. It's the greatest power you and I have in our bodies. There's no other power in our body that could create something as miraculous as another human being. So by working with this force that we have, we activate our highest potential. How do we do that? We send that sexual energy through the different parts of our energetic field, through the chakras. Now the chakras, I don't know what you guys know about them, but I can give you a very quick understanding. There are at least 7 main chakras, and they are in the spine. Has anybody here never heard of a chakra, right? In this day and age, they're almost becoming mainstream, which is great. So the chakras are our energy centers that connect us to the universe around us, and they are responsible for every single aspect of human experience. Our physical body, our energy, our emotions, our mind, and even our spiritual experience are all coming through, regulated, governed by these energy systems called chakras, okay? First chakra is at the base of the spine. I talked a little bit about it today in the practice. That's the root chakra that connects us to the energy of the earth. The very tip of the tailbone, that's where the root chakra is, and that chakra, that energy center, actually is face down towards the earth, so it can collect the energy of the earth. Even the energy of the earth is called yin, and the energy of heaven is called yang, plus and minus. Everything is relatable to these concepts of energy, even within our physical bodies. In the man, they call the lingam, and you're going to learn these words. The lingam is the male genitalia, or the male penis, and it doesn't mean penis. It's actually much more poetic than that. It's the wand of light, which I like, is very beautiful. I feel like Darth Vader, or no, Luke Skywalker, my wand of light. Let the light be there. So that wand of light is the positive charge, or the positive pole, and the negative pole is at the heart for the man. The beautiful thing about nature is they made us fit together perfectly. For the woman, the negative pole is at her yoni. Yoni is vagina, but even more poetically, the sacred space, the space from which all life comes. And her positive pole is at the heart. So when we put a man and a woman together, the positive and negative come together and become one, physically. Even at the level of the lingam and the yoni, the male penis and the female vagina, it's a positive and negative pole meeting. And always between these poles is what? Attraction. And everything in this world is dancing around this attraction between the plus and the minus, the positive and negative, the female and masculine. Now, these are just words. Again, it's just a connotation. Some people say, oh, feminine, masculine, it's politically incorrect. Bullshit, okay? We're talking about something beyond that. We're talking about a fundamental concept that relates to every aspect of our existence. So, once we go from the first chakra, we then go to the second chakra, which the first 2 chakras are the most related to our sexuality. The first chakra is the battery of our being. And where do we get that vitality from? The earth, from the food, from the things that we do like drink water and be in the sun, and all this vitality for the physical being comes through that root chakra. Then we go to the second chakra, and there's different names for this, different translations. I'm going to try to keep it really simple. The second one can be called the sex chakra, the sensual chakra, and this has to do with the element of water, fluidity, emotion, creativity, fantasy, and all of these things are related to our sex life as well. So there's a lot going on in these first 2 chakras that we need to deal with if we're going to go down this tantric path. Remember, it's not about the sex, it's about how is sex a manifestation of what? Love. Right, okay, good. So remember, this is something we need to deal with if we want to experience deep love. If we want to, even if we have no sex, we still have a lot of residue, or we could call it garbage, trapped in here, related around sexuality, because basically a lot of the religions, a lot of our family members, teachers, politics say that sex is somehow taboo or dirty or evil or prevents us from being spiritual. Well, Tantra says no. Whatever exists in this world is here for a reason. Everything here, whatever you can perceive, is a manifestation of the divine creator. So there is no good or bad. There's only what the mind creates as good as bad. We're interpreting reality through the lens and through the filter of our own consciousness. And therefore, when you experience it that way, you start labeling things as this is right or this is wrong. And when something's wrong, that creates a closing down. And so for the first and second chakra, a lot of people have accumulated things that are creating a blockage that don't allow the energy to flow to the higher chakras. Because what we're ultimately trying to do in Tantra is take this vitality that we have, move it up through the chakra systems, awaken each chakra, which means awakening each level of consciousness, and take it all the way to the crown. And the whole goal of Tantra, if there is such a thing, is to bring the energy to the highest consciousness, so that once again we have that union, that oneness of energy and consciousness, the highest experience that we can have. And there's a vast science of how to do this. You can do this alone. You don't need a partner. Most of the Tantrikas, those are practitioners of Tantra, have done this alone, okay? The idea of sexual Tantra is something that is really beneficial in the modern day where we are living in relationship and having sex. So why don't we turn our sexual life into a path to liberation, into integrating it with our spirituality and not having it be something that has to be separate. Everything is connected through our sexual energy. It's what brought us into this world. And so we take that power and we activate everything else within our being. But if we have blockages here from our traumas, from our misinformation, from those other sources of information, we can't get the energy to flow up. So we just need to work very consciously with how to release these blockages. And that's what I'm going to share some of the things with you today. And that's what yoga does. I mean, yoga can be a beautiful physical practice. Again, please don't just look at the yoga science as asana. That's like, it's like thinking of a PhD as just trying to teach you how to open a jar of pickles. It's really ridiculous in how much that takes away from the science of what it's really for. So after we move from the first and second chakra, we move to the navel chakra. The second chakra is at the level of the clitoris for women and the pubic bone for men. And remember, there's an entrance to these chakras. There's an entrance to these chakras in the front and in the back, but that's not the chakra itself. And there's different teachings out there, and I'm not trying to say that I'm right or wrong, but from my understanding and my experience, there's an entrance from the front of the body or the back, and for the root chakra, it's actually from the perineum, that space between the genitals and anus. But the actual chakra itself is an energy center within the spine, but not the physical spine. It's in what's called Sushumna Nadi, or the central channel. That's the biggest channel of energy in our being, and that's where the chakras are. And they are considered, chakra means wheel, or it also means, it's also called a padma, a lotus flower. So when we send the energy in, the wheels are hopefully spinning in the right direction, but if there's blockages, they are not working correctly. So the goal of yoga is really to open the chakras, which then allows us to step into some higher experience of life. And it's like a beautiful analogy is the padma opens, the lotus flower opens and blooms, and then so does your consciousness bloom at each level of each different chakra. Now we take that energy into the third chakra, the navel chakra, and they each have their own color, they each have their own sound, everything is related through vibration. So we look at the first chakra, it's coming in through the root. Remember I said it faces to the earth. Second chakra is at the level of the genitals, just above. And the third chakra is at the level of the navel. Different schools say different things, okay? Some people say it's in the solar plexus. Don't worry, it's there somewhere, okay? So that third chakra, first one is earth, second one is water, third one is, who knows yoga here, chakras? I'm sure the teacher does, fire. So now you're starting to see that the elements that create the universe create us. We are one with nature. So now we have fire here, and this fire is absolutely necessary for our transformation. If you want things to move from one form to another, fire burns wood to ash, and that is a way of transforming. It's a way of purification, and this tantric path is the path of purification, the path of letting go of the things that are holding us back. We're not here to improve ourselves. We're already really ultimately divine, creative gods and goddesses manifest in physical form. We're just here to erase all the stuff that's been covering our perfection. So it's not about trying to make ourselves better, it's about trying to realize the divinity that we already are. And this fire of the navel is what we need to be able to send the energy up. What happens in fire and heat? Where does it go? It rises. And so one of the things that I already said is trying to take that energy and rise it up through the higher chakras so that we can activate the heart, the ability to communicate, the ability to see clearly, and then the ability to connect with source consciously. So fire, this navel chakra, is essential. And most of us in the modern world have very weak navels. Not navels, but navel chakras, because we are swayed by others' opinions of ourselves. We are taught things and then we listen to teachings that don't ring true with our heart and our soul. We are really caught in addiction, whether it be social media, TV screen, computer screen, phone screen, sex, drugs, power. The whole list goes on and on. Addiction rules most human beings' lives at some level. And that is what prevents us from stepping into a greater experience of freedom. So this navel chakra is essential, the fire, the willpower, to be able to face the challenges that come on the spiritual path. Because just because you suddenly go to workshops and study yoga, it doesn't mean it gets easy. It actually, in the beginning stages, gets a lot harder because you're purifying and suddenly all the stuff that's stuck inside of our consciousness surfaces and you got to deal with it. And you thought, oh, I'm going to feel better from yoga. Now I feel like terrible. So understand this, when it gets hard, this is having a bigger perception, a bigger picture that actually better out than in. If I'm not purifying it now, guess what? It's going to result in cancer later, broken hearts, hurting other people, and all the things that happen by keeping the blockages. And by blockages, I mean physical blockage, energetic, emotional, and mental. All of these things can prevent us from being the light being that we already, not preventing us from being it, preventing it from letting it shine forth. So that navel chakra is essential. We need willpower. We need strength. We need determination. We need to fight for our freedom. It's not going to be handed to us. We need to fight. All right, so we take that energy and we have a strong fire and we send it the first place to the heart. Now we get softer. It's not about me anymore. It's about we. Unconditional love and compassion. This is the greatest jump in consciousness and in physical proximity. From the navel to the heart is the farthest distance between two chakras. It's the hardest distance to jump in our level of consciousness because me. I need to fight. I need to do this. It's all about how do I strive for success and win the battle. And then when you get beyond that sense of selfishness, you start seeing everybody as yourself. It's all about we. And how do I serve everybody in my life? For as I give, so shall I receive. And when we move into the heart, the greatest teachers, Jesus, Gandhi, Buddha, Mother Teresa, these are the people that serve from the heart. That's why they left such an imprint on humanity. Most of humanity is at the first and second chakra. Survival, sex, pleasure, sheep in the herd. The people that are at the third chakra are already kind of the elite. They're the presidents, the rulers, the people that have enough power to guide the sheep. So most of us are down here. But the goal of all of our lives is to come here. And there's many ways there. There's the prayer, there's different forms of spirituality. And again, it's up to each one of us to determine the path that's right for us. As is said by a Tibetan monastery, as many monks, as many paths. You know, it's not just because one teacher, Jesus said this, or Buddha said this. We are not Jesus or Buddha, although we have that within us, but our unique experience of reality is as the individual form that you are in. So you have an individual path that you must forge and find for yourself. Nobody can actually teach you what to do. They can give you guidance, but you need to do the work and determine. And where does that effort come from? It comes from that strong navel chakra. So this fire is super important. Then we come up to the air of the heart, this lightness of being, this sense of interconnectedness through the heart. And once we go there, then it starts going into really high levels of consciousness. When we come up to here, the throat chakra, the ability to perceive and understand truth and also to communicate truth. And this is something that, you know, some of the greatest orators or speakers of humanity, again, those teachers, they weren't only here, they developed all of their capacities and they were able to communicate the truth to us. The truth of the heart came out in their communication through the throat. We call it a throat chakra, but you know what I mean. It's just a concept. Everything going okay? Get pretty excited. Okay. So from here, we then go into the third eye. Now, the third eye is not here. Okay. It's not here. It's not here. It's in the middle of the brain. It's at the level of the pineal gland. All right. And that pineal gland has rods and cones, which are aspects of the eye that allow us to see. What the third eye does is allow us to see clearly, beyond duality, beyond this idea that there's separation. It's actually allowing us to see, for those who develop this, they can see the energy bodies. You can see the auras. You can see how energy moves through material things. That's a highly developed or open third eye. Now, that's not the goal either, okay? Remember, all of these things are steps along the journey, but they are signposts or markers of your stage in evolution. And that's the beautiful thing, is to understand who I am. And that's the fundamental question. Ramana Maharshi, this great teacher from the last century, who am I? I'm not my body, I'm not my emotions, I'm not my mind. Well, then who am I? Look inside and find out you are the consciousness in which everything is arising. Your body's arising within your consciousness, your emotions, your thoughts, all of that's coming within this massive sphere of awareness that includes the universe, the sun, the stars, the moon. We are so much more than we believe we are. So it's actually a process of unlearning everything we've been taught, literally. And that's not easy, because that stuff is deep and it's planted in the subconscious. And how do you get in there? Through the third eye, accessing the subconscious and finding those programs that are limiting programs. I can't type, I can't, no, that's mine. I can't type. I was figuring that out as I was making these projects. But these limiting beliefs, literally, that hold us back. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of money. I can't be successful. Nobody wants to have a relationship with me. As you think, as you believe, so you create. So until you know what your beliefs and thoughts are, you're not going to know how to transcend those limiting obstacles. So again, you don't have to do anything. I recommend, and the science recommends, you go in and figure out what are your beliefs about yourself and about the world. The world is hard. It's a dog-eat-dog place. It's all suffering. If that's what you believe, what are you going to experience? Exactly what you believe. So you can change your beliefs, but it's not simple. It takes a little bit of effort. Again, that's where the daily practice comes in. It's like you chip away a little bit each day. And as you go deeper and deeper, you start to get closer and closer to the truth. So we work through the third eye. Where is it? In the middle of the brain, right. Good, thank you. Okay, the high school teacher in me comes out sometimes. So then we go up to the final, the crown chakra, and that's not facing forward or back, that's facing up. And doesn't mean God's up there, God's everywhere, okay? God is a loaded term. Some people, I was raised in Christianity and didn't have a great relationship with the church, and somebody said God, I was like, I don't know about that. That's a term that kind of is loaded and heavy and got a lot of connotation. It's just really fast to say, okay? So creator, universe, cosmic consciousness, universal mind, the energetic cosmic field of energy, whatever works for you, just replace it, okay? If you don't like the word God. But God could also be an acronym, meaning generator, organizer, and destroyer. Same principles that run the universe. Something created it, something's maintaining it, and something's destroying. That's the process of life, birth, life, and death, the cycle, okay? And that's what everything is going through. So when we get into this highest consciousness, it's about being one with that universal understanding that there is no separation. It's really accessible to us. That's what I want you to know. It's not something that's only for mystics and only for people that do go into caves for 20 and 30 years. We are all born to reach this state of consciousness. It's within us there. Once again, this idea of purification, you're clearing away the nonsense that's preventing us from actually having these experiences. Okay? So, just to give you another idea, this is can't see it so well. It's really nice on my screen. So, this is a artistic rendition that shows the chakras, and remember, these chakras are related to the different elements of the universe. We had at the base, earth, the second one, and also think about it as vibration. It goes from most dense, slowest vibration to get more and more higher frequency. So we go from earth, second chakra is water, third chakra is fire, fourth chakra is air, and the fifth chakra is ether, the most, how can we say? It's space. It's the space in which all things exist. So it's the highest vibration of all of these elements that are creating our physical body. And once we go beyond this, we're not dealing with the physical anymore, we're dealing with the mind. And the mind is the ultimate goal, not goal, it's the ultimate tool that allows us to then go into the heart, okay? Yeah, I will repeat myself often. It's not because I don't think you're smart, it's because I want you to hear it several times so that you leave here remembering what was said in class. There's a study that came out that people that go to workshops remember 30% of what was taught if they're lucky. So I would like to get that up to 40, 50, 60%, and repeating things and going over concepts a few different times from different directions and angles and explaining the same thing in different ways. That's one of my intentions. So please don't be offended if I'm saying repeated it. And I'm not repeating it because I can't remember what I said. Okay. A few more fundamental concepts about this. Our being is not just the physical, it's also made up of layers or bodies or koshas that are called, like, you ever seen the Russian dolls where you pull out one and then there's another one inside, another one inside? That's literally what we are. We have different vibrational fields within our being. The densest, most material is our physical body. But then we have the more subtle body, the energy body. And that energy body is something that if you train enough, you can start to see clearly energy around beings, around trees, around nature, because everything is energy and it's emitting a frequency. It's actually not that hard to learn how to see it. Then you go into the more subtle body, which is the emotional body. That's the aura that radiates around us. And you hear about people reading auras. The aura changes colors because our emotions are in constant transformation, constant flux. So those people that have a really awakened third eye can actually see the color of the aura. The energy body is really close to the body. It's like a glove fitting over the body, and it's kind of a smoky gray blue color. And that doesn't change color. But when you talk about aura, it's the aura of the emotional body that's in constant movement, the emotions. You feel one thing one moment, and guess what? A thought comes in, you suddenly feel terrible just because you had a thought. Nothing changed in your universe around you. The only thing that changed, made your heart race, made you sweat, made your stomach feel like you want to puke, it's your thoughts. So be aware of what you're thinking. This is one of the missions of our time together, is to start to, the real yoga is awareness of your thoughts. You know, I tried to plant some seeds during class today. Watch your mind, watch your body, watch your energy, watch your breath. Be the observer, because we are the witness of all of this that's happening within ourselves. Now we go to the next subtle body, and here it's called the wisdom body, but it's also the mental body. That's the mind, okay? And the mind is basically the filter through which you experience everything. So what's in your mind? It's really, when I first started this, I was so freaked out by looking at my mind. I was horrified when somebody said, close your eyes and watch your thoughts. And I thought I'd gone insane because I never paid attention. The mind's just running all the time as a teenager, and I just thought that's natural, okay, I'm crazy, how it is. But then when somebody says to actually sit there and see what's happening inside, and you begin to experience the insanity in the mind, it was very disconcerting to me. And it was actually a moment of terror. Like, wow, what am I going to do with this? Well, this is why we do these practices, so that it's not there's a great teaching from the Yoga Sutras that yoga means the stopping of the movements of the mind. Well, that's the highest possible experience, and it can happen for any of us. Like, you're watching a sunset, it's really beautiful, and instead of putting a name on it, and labeling it, and interpreting it, you just are there, accepting the beauty without any thought. So it can happen at any time. But trying to force your mind to stop, that's actually a real challenge. The greatest yogis can do that. But until we get to that level, it's not about fighting and making an enemy out of your mind. I'll say that again. It's really about accepting your mind as it is. When you start to accept the mind, then more peace comes in. It's when you start to resist, that's the actual problem. So when we go from the mental body, we go to what's called the bliss body. And the bliss body is also called the causal body, the source or the seat of what's guiding our existence, our karma. And what is karma? And we hear that word all the time. It's very simple to make it very simple, we could call it action. Karma is action and it's reaction. So whatever we do in our lives has a reaction. Physics says the same thing. Everything has an equal and opposite reaction. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So when we look at karma, we understand that everything that we do, everything that we think, everything that we feel is all creating karma. And these chakras that are in the body, now remember, these chakras are related to everything. They're related to the physical, energetic, emotional, mental, and spiritual aspects of ourselves. These chakras hold our karma. So by working with purifying the chakras, we're purifying our karma, which means that we can liberate ourselves through the tantric practice. Tantra is a direct route to realization. They say it's the fast path. It's also, if you get involved with sexual tantra, it's like walking the razor's edge, as they say. Very dangerous, because all that power that comes from your sexual energy can be used for freedom or it can be used for destruction. So learning these skills and developing more and more power is something that can be liberating or very dangerous for us to work with. When we work with the chakras and we understand these bodies, it's just expanding the perception of who we are. And then you get the technique and you say, from self-analysis, what is it that's holding me back? I don't have much willpower. You know, I have all these dreams of manifesting something, but I never seem to be able to see my project through. I don't work hard enough. I don't feel that I can give love, or I don't feel like I have enough vitality. All of this aspects of ourselves are related to the chakras. So what do? You work on the energy in that chakra. You balance it, you purify it, you amplify it, and then you help it to grow and spread up to the higher chakras. Okay, I know it's not a chakra class, but I wanted you guys to have this fundamental concepts because this is what we're going to take into the understanding of the art of love. Now the art of love, of course, is about an emotional component. It's the ultimate component, but how do we access that? It's through the purification of the other parts of ourselves. And we're going to go there together with some different practices. Now, in the Tantra world, there's all different kinds of workshops. This one is rated G, okay, for general audience. It's not rated R or rated X, which you can find in the Tantra world, where people are doing all kinds of things together, and everything has its place. I'm not saying theirs is right or ours is right and theirs is wrong. They're different approaches. We're taking a very gentle approach to Tantra. Nobody's getting naked here. There's not any sexual explicit demonstrations or participation with each other. So that in that way, when I try to teach about sexual Tantra, I'm limited in what I can actually show you or do with you. Not that I would do it with you, but what I'm saying is the way that we can understand how this all works is through working with our energy, learning how to work with our breath, our chakras, our energy fields, how to perceive the energy, how to move it, and also then how to work with partners. Now, we're not getting naked and working with energy that way, but we can breathe together. We can look into each other's eyes. We can sit back to back and breathe from each other's chakras and start to try to feel this energy. And like I said before class, if you don't feel energy, that's fine. As long as your mind is focused, the energy is there, and you're going to get results. So the perception of energy comes with practice. It comes with a healthy diet. It comes with purifying your energy field. And I could say when I first started at that Tantra school that I lived at for 7 years and taught at, I was like, did everybody else drink the Kool-Aid and I forgot? Because everybody's talking about feeling the energy and their heart chakra open, and I didn't feel anything for a few months. And I thought, man, I missed the boat. I don't know what they did that I didn't do, but I've been practicing for hours every day. Eventually, it comes, okay? So don't worry about the energy perception, but we are going to learn things that will help us to get to that point of perception, because sexual interaction gets so much deeper and more profound when we can perceive something beyond just the physical level. It becomes a profound dance between the masculine and feminine energy, and we perceive the merging of that energy becoming one. And you can have that perception in making love very much more easily than in, we could say, a meditation, because the act of making love is so intense, and sometimes for many human beings it's the most pleasurable and blissful experience they have in life. That brings us into the present moment. Yoga, the whole science is about being present, because this is where reality is. Everything else, the past and the future, is a game of the mind. It's just this story that we're telling ourselves, or a memory that we're having that isn't happening now. So when we can make love consciously, we're so present. And that's the ultimate meditation. It can happen in sport. For me, the first time I have felt like meditation was when I was playing sport. And nothing else mattered except for what I was doing in that moment. You can have it when you're cooking or gardening or making love or doing your music or art. But the whole science of all of these real spirituality practices is how to live in this present moment, because that's where we access the power. It's the only place that has power. It's the only place we can actually awaken. So coming into the present moment is the teaching. And how do we do that? We get the mind engaged in one thing. And we try to do that by engaging as many of our senses as possible. Tantra says, let's get everything involved in one activity. My mind, my eyes, my breath, my sense of touch, my sound, my sense of hearing. And when you have all these channels of perception engaged and focused on one thing, then you're present. You're not drifting to the past or the future. And that happens very easily, much more easily, in making love than it does in other things. That's why Tantra says, let's use this as a tool for awakening to our full potential. It's not about better orgasms. It's not about coming and coming and coming, although that's really cool. But what it does when we are coming and coming and coming, we're actually stepping beyond the mind. Because when you have a great orgasm, you're not thinking about who left the toilet seat up or why I didn't get into that job that I wanted. You are beyond the mind for that moment. And the French have a beautiful name for the orgasm. Anybody here speak French? Le petit mot. I don't speak French. That's a terrible way to say it, but it's my try. Can you say it for us, please?
Le petit mot.
See, that sounds nice. Okay. That means what?
It's the end of the conscious. It's
The little, the petite is little, yeah? The little death. The death of the ego. The death of the sense of duality and separation. When you're in a really good orgasm, you have merged with the universe. The mind has stopped, time has stopped, everything is expanded consciousness. It's just one incredible energy field of orgasmic bliss. That's one of the things that Tantra says. If you can tap into this orgasmic state, and an orgasmic state is different than an orgasm. We can be orgasmic and have a sense of orgasmic state for minutes and hours. An orgasm can happen for a few seconds. So what we're tapping into through this path of tantric sexuality is how do we step into that state of expanded consciousness through lovemaking. And that's what I want to try to give you the tools to understand, and then the best homework you ever had. It's not like geometry or science when you were in class. You get to go home, hopefully, and well, the thing is, you do either practice with a partner, but a lot of practices are alone, to start to activate and perceive your own sexual energy. And guess what? It's called masturbation. Yay. So you're actually encouraged to do it here. Not here, but you're actually encouraged to do it as your homework, because your masturbation practices, we call it, the name doesn't sound that nice, your solo practice, your self-love practice, these things are more poetic. When you are alone, amplifying and activating your sexual energy, then learn how it works. And then you know how your body responds to stimulation. And then you can learn to make that energy move into the other chakras. And then you can activate and open your heart. You can open your third eye, because this is the power. And that power isn't just for sex. It's the creative force that you use for every activity of your life. We don't get taught that in school. But our sexual energy is the force that drives our life. And that energy is what creates your art, your music, your business, your hobby, your sport. So we're going to take that force through our solo practices, our self-loving practices, and we're going to understand who I am in the realm of sexuality, and I'm going to take that energy and I'm going to open up and expand and become the best version of myself by utilizing my biggest force. That's what Tantra is about. Using pleasure, using sexual energy to then step into your highest potential. And most importantly, our highest potential is as a loving, conscious, awake being who sees beyond the duality. Okay, I'm trying to wrap it all up here for our break. But you get the understanding, right? This is kind of a fundamental approach in a quick summary way of what we're going to get ourselves into and why we're here and why I'm here and what I have to share with you today. Okay? So let's see. Just take a quick look. Last couple concepts before we move on. God, you really can't see it. Okay, so don't even try. One of the things that I'm going to keep coming back to, and I just need you to have this in vocabulary so I don't have to explain it every time, is the idea of sublimation. Sublimation means taking energy from the lower chakras and moving it up. We're subliming the energy. That means we are taking something heavy and dense and gross, meaning slower vibration, like sexual energy, and we're moving it up. And as it moves up, it's transformed and transmuted into something more refined, more subtle, more spiritual. So we take our heavy sexual passion and we bring it up and we open the heart and it becomes love. We open the third eye and it becomes expanded consciousness. So sublimation is the act of taking that lower energy from the lower chakras and moving it up, up, up. That's the Tantric approach. There is another approach that I also find extremely valuable and healthy. It's the Taoist approach. Taoism is from China, and they talk about yin and yang. And they, instead of circulating the energy up, 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 that's really the goal in Tantra, is send it up, open the higher chakras. There's also another approach through Taoism where you're circulating it through a microcosmic orbit, through the spine, up over the top of the head, through the front, tongue touches the roof of the mouth to connect the energy circuit, down the channel that's in the front of the body, back through the belly button into the genitals to the perineum, that space between the genitals and anus. And that's a microcosmic orbit. And running the energy through the orbit is also a very powerful practice. And we're going to play with both of these different ways of moving energy through our being. This one of sublimation is really powerful for activating the chakras. This one of the microcosmic orbit, an orbit means it's circulating like an orbit through the whole being, is really good because it also keeps our physical body very strong. If all we do is send energy up, eventually we have the possibility of depleting these lower chakras, unless we're doing a lot of things that bring us vitality. And some people have more vitality than others. And if someone doesn't have a lot of vitality and they're doing tantric practices and everything's up, 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 eventually they're going to get tired and they're going to get depleted. So this microcosmic orbit, the Taoists are very much more grounded in their approach. They work with the earth energy a lot. And in Tantra, it's more about how do we just skyrocket and explode out of the crown. So they're two different approaches. They're both valuable, but we're lucky in this modern day we have access to both. And you know, sometimes I'm doing the microcosmic orbit in life, in love, whatever. Sometimes I just need to send it up. And we're going to talk about the difference between those two and when you could possibly use them and why you would use them differently. Okay? So are there any questions about what I said so far? I know I just spit out a lot of energy and a lot of information at you. Get ready. It's only going to get more intense from here. And we're going to do little practices here and there to start tapping into feeling energy, perceiving it, and moving it and sharing it with others in a non-sexual way at this course. But I'll tell you how then you can also do these practices in a sexual way with yourself and with others so that you can have these experiences that I've just talked about. Okay? It's exciting, right? What's exciting is that you have, this science empowers us to take our evolution and our awakening into our hands in this life. It's not like, oh man, I'm a passive victim of life happening to me and circumstances screwed me and I'll never get what I want and I'll never wake up and whatever. The understanding is that now I have the knowledge, which knowledge is the power, and the power allows me to become the director of my awakening process. So that's why it's exciting, because now you step into this ability to be who you want to be and manifest what you want to manifest in your life. You're already doing it, but most of us are doing it subconsciously. And subconsciously doing it's not very good because those limitations in the subconscious programming are bringing things we don't want. So let's create what we want. The Tantrics say, and many of the spiritual paths say, this whole thing's just a dream, guys. It's just an illusion in your consciousness. It's not really happening. And if you go into deep meditation, you'll experience that truth. But the Tantrics say, sure, it's a dream. We know it's a dream. Let's make it the best freaking dream we can have. Let's really have fun with it. Let's create a world where there's love and appreciation, and we are manifesting beauty everywhere we go. We can only do that if we remove the blockages and the subconscious programming, and then we can step into the light fully, which is what we're meant to do. We're here to be the beings of light that are creating a beautiful world. So if we do this for ourselves, the greatest thing that we can gift to the world is bringing the light from ourselves into it. But we have to first clean ourselves up a bit, shine it up, and then we can shine it out. All right? Buddha said he had to awaken himself first before he could help anybody else. And there's many teachers who have said that. The best gift that we have for the world is our own awakening. Because as long as we are out there with our stuff, we're not necessarily helping as much as we could. So take care of this in the next few months, few years. Work on yourself. Devote time to this while you have youth, energy, and health to do it. Because by the time you're 60, 70, 80, 90, and things are already starting to go on the other side of the hill, it might be too late to come back to this ability to really pour your heart and energy and mind into this endeavor of awakening. So do it now. Now is the only time to really focus on your power. Anyway, I want to just share this passion with you because, like I said at the beginning, I'm in a place that I never thought would exist. Why am I here? Because I put years of work into it, and thank God I did. Like, it was worth it. I don't regret having not had a family or a job that paid money or any of those things. Now, I'm not saying that what I did is right for everybody, but I don't regret the time I put into taking away the shit that was making me unhappy. I'm happy. Like, that's cool. It's the coolest thing I could ever experience. I'm actually happy, and I didn't know that was possible. So I would just want you to know, I'm not a mystic. I'm not anything other than anybody else. You have access to this, guys. We all can be happy, but it takes a little bit of effort. So that's what I want you to know. Take the tools, engage with them every day, and it's going to get better and better. Yay. Okay, any questions?